Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel Learnatcloudanalytics. In this video, we will be looking at one of the important DAX function within Power BI, which is lookup value function. So lookup value function would help us to get the resultant value from a specific data set. So for example, if we have two data sets or probably within the same data set, if we are looking, if we wanted to get the resultant value based on a search value, right, or a search column, that is when we go with the lookup value function. So I know that this is quite difficult to understand if I have to orally explain it. So let's quickly go into the demonstration part and understand this in deep. So here I've got different data sets being loaded within Power BI desktop. Now for this particular demonstration, I'd be using a couple of data sets. Initially, I'll go with the orders table, which is straightforward. So this is my superstore data set, sample superstore data set, and from this particular table, or probably let's first go into the data and try to look at how the data is organized, and then we'll come back to creating the logics that is required for this analysis. So here, as you see, I've selected the orders table and this is my data view. So I have several columns of data within this particular table. However, I do not have okay, so now my requirement is, so I will break down this topic into two different use cases. The first use case is that I would like to bring in my customer name when I refer that to a customer ID. Okay, so I've already had done the analysis, like I've done some transformation on my existing customer ID, and this is my new customer ID, and I wanted to based on this particular customer ID, I would like to get the relevant customer name associated to it. Okay, so I would like to find or search based on this particular ID and get the resultant as my customer name. So for that, I will come back to my report view, and from my orders table, I'll quickly create a measure and call this measure as customer name, and I will be using this function called lookup value. Now as you see, the syntax for this lookup value function is there are three main parameters to be inserted. The first column is your resultant column. So what you expect to see in your output, that is where you have to specify in the first column, followed by what is your search column based on which you'd like to get the resultant column. So that would be your search column name, and followed by the search value. So let me give you this with an example so that it'll be easier for you to understand this parameters or the different attributes that has to be listed out here. So in our requirement, I would like to see my customer names associated with their customer ID. So here my resultant column would be my customer name from my orders table. So I would say orders customer name, and based on my customer ID, right? So that would be my search column. So therefore I will choose my orders table and customer ID new, and then followed by the search value. So since there are several customer IDs listed down within my table, I would have to specify to which customer ID you would like to see the customer name associated. So let's quickly go back to the data view and look through the customer ID and provide that particular value within my calculation. So I'll just scroll through my customer ID. So I'll just pick my first customer ID, which is 19885, and the customer name for this ID is Ruben. Okay, so let's come back to this data view, and I'll go back to my customer name measure, and I'll specify that customer ID as 19885. Okay, so let me repeat the syntax again. So lookup value is mainly helpful to provide the resultant column based on a search column. Okay, so here my resultant or my output that I would like to focus here is my customer name. So I wanted to see my customer name from my customer ID or based on my customer ID with this specific customer ID. So it is just trying to refer to this particular customer ID value, and it will then provide me to which customer name is this ID belonging to. Okay, so that is my expectation. So I'll just quickly hit on OK, and then I will go to this card, and probably I'll bring in my customer name here. Okay, yeah. So as you see, this was my customer name that I saw on that data view, right? So probably I'll quickly go back to my data view and compare it. So what I've used here as my customer ID is 19885, and the customer name associated to that customer ID is Ruben Osman. Okay, so that is exactly what we've seen in the output. So maybe we'll try to give a different ID randomly. So okay, so I'll pick this 15835. Okay, so this is my customer ID. So let's see what is my customer name associated to it. Okay, okay, so the customer name is John Lee. Okay, so that should be my output when I apply this particular measure. So let me quickly give this customer ID as 15835. So I'll just update 19835. Okay. Um, Sorry, I think it was different. 15835. Sorry. Yeah. So I'll just update it 15835 and hit on apply. Okay. So as you see, the customer name is correctly updated in my resultant card. So this is how we can make use of the lookup value function within Power BI. So this is very simple use case. So here what we've been trying to do is what we have done already, or perhaps is within my same data set, if I wanted to refer to a specific column and get the resultant value, then I can use my lookup value similar to that of your Excel or any other database. It's the same functionality even within Power BI. So based on that search column, the resultant column would be displayed accordingly. Okay, now let's try to understand with another use case, which is one of the most important or commonly used in a project in real time. So the second use case is that, let's say that we have two different data sets, and when I wanted to refer to one data set to the other and get the resultant value, how do we create that particular logic? Okay, so let's see that with an example there. So for that, I will be using this other table called 2018 sales. So this data has different columns within it. Like you can see, all the keys listed are have been listed within my sales table, and I also have other tables like customers, locations, people, and products. So what I wanted to achieve here is I would like to see what is my uh, based on my location name, or the location ID. I would like to find what is the location name associated to it. Okay, so as you see within my sales table, I only have the list of, or the columns with the IDs, but I do not have the information of that particular column, right? Whether it's the customer name or the location name or the product name, we do not have that information. Now, if we wish to have that particular information being provided here, then we can use this particular lookup function. Okay, so let's try to create that calculation. So I'll create a new column, and I would call this as location name, and I would use the function called lookup value. So what I'm expecting to see in the output is, or in the resultant column is, I would like to see my location name. Okay, so for that, I would be using the other table, which is my locations table. So from my locations table, I would like to see my locations name, followed by what is your search column here. So the common key between my sales table and my locations table is my location ID. So therefore, I'd be using this particular key. And similarly, from my sales table, I have to refer to that with the common key, which is for the common column, which is my location ID, and then hit on enter. Okay, so now let's try to bring in that. So I'll just add a table, and I'll just add this location name. Probably I'll add the location ID and the location name. So now you can see that the location name has been added along with my location ID correctly. Okay, so this is how you can make use of the lookup function, lookup value function within Power BI. Whenever you need to refer to a different data set and you'd like to bring in that value within another data set, then you can make use of this particular DAX function. Okay, so I will quickly show you what I've written within my measure. So let me just zoom in. Okay, so I hope this is visible now. And yeah, so what I've written, so I just mentioned lookup value of, so this is my output which I wanted to look at in my resultant data. So the location name and what are my reference values or the search values. So this is my location ID. So based on the location ID from the locations table and the sales location ID, I would like to get my location name. Okay, so these two are like the common columns that are existing within both the tables, so that based on that we can get to see the location name displayed in our output. Okay, so this is all about the lookup value within Power BI tags. So I hope you understood this tags function thoroughly. So if you do like this video, please do like, share, and subscribe. And do let me know if you would like to know about a specific tags function within Power BI. Thank you.